And what's this on the carpet as well? Some cardboard fluff. God knows where that came from. Right. Are you wanting to go up? There you go, dude. Go, go. No, no, you want to come in. Deary me, one in, one out. Come on, dude. Come and join the show. We're going to talk about rock music. Oh, fine, okay. Obviously, I don't smell that good. No, leave the laptop alone. You're going to make it smash and go all over the floor. God, you're such a ruckus. Oh, you want to go out now as well? Indecisiveness of cats. Okay, well, that being said, welcome to another live stream, guys, and much, much, much earlier than I've ever done live streams. I think I've only ever done like one day live stream before on this channel, so I just want to do something a little bit different. It's the weekend, so let's just think, you know, we don't have to wait until evening time to do stuff. What are you doing? Jack, it's not a scratching post. This is what happens when you have like loads of cats. And I do apologize. You can probably see one down there. You can see the other on that side. There's another one. Where is it? Up there, Nadir Shah. They seem to know whenever I'm trying to do something like important or busy. It's just got my eye on them, the camera. They just know whatever I'm doing, like important wise, on the laptop. They seem to come in and just kind of like make a ruckus on everything. They just know when I'm trying to do something important. What are you doing? Such a weirdo. You're trying to turn it into a house. Oh my goodness. Look, stop. Stop, 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 stop. Look, there you go. Ow, 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 ow. You guys are okay. You guys don't make ruckuses. You just kind of like chill and relax and do what you need to do. Although you are heading towards the door. Somebody once wrote something that said, dogs have owners, cats have staff members. I feel that's very true. Oh, you're sniffing the door. Okay. Let me know if you do want to go out, okay? Otherwise, just chill and relax. You know, go snooze with Nadir Shah up there. Anyway, as we were saying, yeah, just, well, it's weekend. Let's just do a daytime live stream. We don't have to wait until the evening times to do it. And in terms of ideas, I was looking at thinking, you know, we could do a martial arts related one. I feel that we've spoken quite a lot about martial arts stuff. Actually, I think it was the previous live stream we did. So I looked at it and thought, I'd like to maybe kind of like take a break from that, focus on something maybe a little bit more lighthearted. And I know I mentioned as well about socioeconomic things, because recently we've been talking a lot about Zoroastrianism. That live stream we did about Zoroastrianism has got like hundreds of views. I never realized like Zoroastrianism was that well, it's an interesting religion for sure, but I never realized that it had like such an interest, or people wanted to learn so much about it, and they came to my channel to learn about Zoroastrianism. It's not even a Zoroastrian channel, or it's not even a religious channel. But I put out another idea thinking, you know, maybe we could talk something about that as well. We could talk about Shintoism, we could talk about Confucianism, like some sort of like theological type of topic, or maybe then actually blend socioeconomic politics into it. My channel, I've noticed recently, is becoming a bit more politicalized. I'm in two minds about that. I mean, I feel it's very, very important, and there's a lot going on in the world where I feel that we can't really stand back and ignore. But at the same time, I don't want to make my channel a political channel, because that's not what I want for this channel. So that being said, I looked and thought, just do something lighthearted, just do something chill and relax. So I feel that everybody can really relate to, or everybody can just enjoy. And it doesn't have to involve politics. It doesn't have to involve martial arts. And it's music. Music brings people together. Everybody loves music to a degree. Music these days is awful, I have to be honest. And it's just like, for me, I've never liked contemporary modern music. whatever's on the radio these days, I really find myself grinding my teeth or just turning the radio station off, which is most often in my car. And as a matter of fact, I've actually now hardwired my car radio, so it can only pick up one radio station, and that's called Upfront Dance, which is, I still wouldn't say it's good, but it's like better than most contemporary music you get here in England now. Heart FM is disgusting. BBC Radio, Radio 1 is disgusting. BBC Radio 2 is marginally better, but it's still pretty disgusting. BBC Radio 4 is just talking and it's boring. And I realise the irony of that because I'm talking and I get bored of the sound of my own voice as well. That being said, most of the music in my car is actually CDs. And I haven't actually bought CDs for ages, but growing up, I went through a period of actually buying nothing but CDs. Whenever I got paid, it was like, right, what rock and heavy metal CDs do I want to get? And it was just literally just buying the latest thrash metal albums and buying like gore bands and all this kind of stuff I look at now, and I don't even remember the last time I actually bought a CD or went out of my way to actually kind of say, you know what, there's an album by a band I like, I want to go and get one of their records. I don't actually remember the last time I did that, to be honest. And how priorities change just the older you get. But that being said, music still does very much bring people together. So I looked and thought, you know what, let's do a live stream about music. And what specifically about music is going to be about how I became involved. Oh, cat. No, the cat's just jumped up here. But it's specifically about how I became involved in a rock band called Buddha's Dream. Yes, I did create that name. It was my band. And we're going to talk about that. Just because it's fun, it's silly, it's rubbish. And how do you even come up with a name like Buddha's Dream anyway? Well, we're going to explain and explore that as well. And what kind of music Buddha's Dream played, because it was very unique, even by metal standards. So bear with me, I'm just going to open up this window because it's absolutely boiling in here and the cat is looking out the window. I think the cat wants to kind of poke its head out and get a breeze as well, so just bear with me. Then we'll get properly started. Oh, it's fucking disgusting. Oh, right. Cat. No, you can stay there. Look, it's okay. Just open up the window a little bit. We might even hear some like people shouting outside as well. Anyway, so let's go back. Genesis chapter 1. How did my interest in music start? As a kid, I've said this many times before on live streams, and those who know me, as a kid, I was raised in the Middle East. I was raised in Dubai before Dubai became the shithole that it is today. Dubai used to be a nice place, but that's a story for another time. My parents, they had a contract with Emirates Airlines, and we moved to Dubai when I was 4 years old. So I grew up in Dubai, went to school in Dubai, and Dubai, I mean, it's very liberal now by Middle Eastern standards. There's still some things you just will not do out there, and I don't recommend doing. But back then, this is like early 90s, back in the early 90s, Dubai was a very conservative place. And when I was out there, growing up as a little kid, Dubai was gradually becoming more and more modernized. And it was a gradual process. And over time, you began seeing like big, glitzy, glam shopping malls appearing. And Dubai never had any of this stuff. Dubai had always had the traditional souk, or you've got your little supermarkets, but they're mostly run by Indian families like Choitrums or Spinneys. But Dubai began building big glitz and glam shopping malls. I remember they had the Wafi Centre, they had Dubai City Centre, they had the Bergerman, they had Pink Plaza. And when these first opened up, we went to them as a family, like, oh, you know, on the weekend, let's go down to this new shopping centre, which has just sprung up in Jumeirah. So we would. And I remember in one of these shops, me and Luke went into Virgin Megastore. We were just like looking at music CDs. My dad was very much into the Beatles. So we went into these music stores trying to find Beatles CDs. And of course, it's just contemporary, like early 90s kind of stuff, whatever the hell was around then. I don't even remember. And as we were in, I specifically remember this music store, we were looking through all these CDs. it was all like bubblegum pop and stuff like that. Happy music this, happy music that. Everything was like really bright and, you know, bubbly. And then in the corner of this music store, there was literally the black corner. And when I say the black corner, it was a black corner. It wasn't metaphorical speaking. It was the corner. I mean, this Virgin Megastore shop in this shopping mall was huge anyway. But in the far corner, it was all dark. There was like no lights around it, or very small lights, I remember. Black painted walls, and it just looked really like forbidding. But me and my brother, we saw people kind of like walking into this place, and these people walking in there were like guys with long hair. And I remember at the time I was like, why would a guy have long hair? That's really weird. And it was my first time I'd ever seen like a heavy metal rock fan or something like that. So yeah, that in itself, seeing guys with long hair walk into this dark corner of this Virgin Megastore, I was like, oh, this is a bit weird. But anyway, me and my brother, then, being weird that we are, we were like, oh, you know, let's go into that dark corner and see what those guys are going to get up to. So we did. We walked into this dark corner of this Virgin Megastore in Dubai, and it was the heavy metal section. And we walked into between all these aisles, and we were picking up all the CDs. Me being naive, still expecting to find the Beatles or the Eagles or Santana or Gypsy Kings or something. No. Picking up CDs by Iron Maiden, picking up CDs, Metallica, Judas Priest, all this kind of stuff. And I distinctly remember seeing one CD, and it was the album Countdown to Extinction by Megadeth. Now, Megadeth are a renowned thrash metal band, and in 1992 they released an album called Countdown to Extinction. The album cover itself is disturbing. It's literally this, what looks like a prison cell, and there's like a bowl of bones, like human bones on the floor. There's this horrible toilet in the corner, and in the middle of this room there's this real skinny guy wearing nothing but like a soiled loincloth with like long grey hair, like I said, really skinny, and he's just standing there looking at the ceiling, and he's like screaming. And I saw this as a 4-year-old, and just looking at this album cover, Countdown to Extinction by Megadeth, as a 4-year-old with a skinny man screaming at the ceiling, it freaked me out. And I remember picking up the CD case, and I was just like, ugh. Hey, bro, look at this. Ugh. And we looked on the back and looking at the song titles, and I had names like Sweating Bullets, Ashes in Your Mouth, Captive Honor, Architecture of Aggression, all this kind of stuff. And I'd never come across rock music, let alone thrash metal. And I was looking at this thinking, this is disgusting. Hey, Milo is in the chat. Hey, Milo, just me and you, bro. When you have time, explain why you're doing this. I'm interested. Yeah, no worries. I mean, just a little bit of backtrack. I said this at like the beginning. Is it some sort of therapy or release? Milo, I'll introduce you to my cats first. This is Nadir Shah, named after a Persian king. Say hello. She's terrified. You are talking to a bereavement therapist. This is very much my catharsis, and I decided actually today live stream, even though I have a martial arts related channel. Whenever I do live streams, I actually like to use live streams as an opportunity to talk about stuff away from martial arts. I see live streams very much as an occasion of, right, let's let our hair down and just talk about anything else which comes to mind. We did a live stream a few weeks ago where we talked about Zoroastrianism, the religion Zoroastrianism from ancient Persia. We've done live streams in the past where we've talked about Greta Thunberg. We've done live streams where we've talked about PTSD and CPTSD and all this kind of psychological kind of stuff. And this one I just looked at and thought, you know what? Let's keep it lighthearted. Let's not talk about martial arts stuff. If martial arts come up, great, but it's not going to be the focus. Let's not talk about anything heavy, heavy topics, I mean, but let's just talk about something light-hearted. I thought, well, music. Everybody likes music. So I thought, I could talk about maybe the days I got into like I made my own thrash metal band when I was a kid. Just because if you see a lot of my videos, when people leave comments on my videos, I'll quite often respond. I try to respond to every single comment, and quite often I'll end a comment of my own saying, "Stay safe, train hard, keep listening to," and I'll insert a band because they're the best band around. I just feel that music's very binding. Music brings people together, and especially in like the rock and heavy metal. Rock and metal fans are very inclusive. People look at rock and metal fans and think, oh, you're just knuckle dragging dolts who don't know anything. A lot of metalers generally, from my experience, they're generally quite like social pariahs, but they're very harmless. They're harmless kind of guys. You see all these rock and metalers at festivals and they're all like jumping up and down and it looks violent, but it's actually a very organized kind of chaos if you want to get philosophical. So I find actually like rock and metal, I could go to a metal gig, which I have done, and I feel completely safe. I think there's a lot of social stigma around metal and rock, and people think it's all very violent kind of stuff, and it's not. It's really not. You're going to talk to a metaler, you're going to meet generally a very, very placid kind of guy, a guy who's has a lot of interests and likes, is just generally like a nice kind of feeling, to be honest. I remember going to a bar once and I went to buy a drink. This was like a rock bar. I went to buy a beer, realized actually I didn't have the right money, and there's a stranger next to me who just, no, don't worry about it, dude. And he just bought me a drink. And we ended up the rest of the night, he invited me back to his table with his friends and we just had a drink talking about Pantera. So yeah, that's the sort of, is it a therapy? Yeah, it's very much a talking creative therapy. It's a catharsis, I'd say. But happy to have you on board, and feel free to contribute with any thoughts, theories, questions, opinions. I very much like freedom of expression. And I like to be challenged as well sometimes. So I don't necessarily like to just have an echo chamber. So going back to the story of when I was a kid in Dubai and I first came across this Megadeth CD, that was my first exposure to rock and metal. Now, the important thing, now this is getting a little bit therapeutic and psychological and trauma-informed care. When I saw, as a 4-year-old, the album cover to Countdown to Extinction by Megadeth for the very first time, it's lodged itself in my brain. Now, this is becoming very Freudian. I shoved consciously seeing that CD out of my conscious thought, but it went back to the back of my brain and it lodged there subconsciously. Flint Lockwood, I'm listening. Rock on, Flint. Listen to Countdown to Extinction by Megadeth if you haven't done so already. And I will say, just skipping ahead slightly, my interest in metal started with stuff like Countdown to Extinction. It progressed over the years to much more, how would I say this? Not violently themed, that sounds quite psychopathic. Strange. The strange end of rock and heavy metal and stuff like that. But going back to the whole Countdown to Extinction, yeah, it lodged itself in my brain. Many, many years passed. I went through the rest of my childhood and my teenage years in Dubai, not being drawn to rock and metal. I was still very much into the Beatles and stuff like that. And I kind of forgot about Megadeth. I forgot about this episode I had in Virgin Megastore in Brighton, finding Countdown to Extinction. But came the day, my parents, their contract with Emirates Airlines ended and they decided to move to England. I hated living in England. It took me many, many, many years to assimilate into English culture properly. And I feel that when we came to England, I was very angry. I was angry at, the situation. I was admittedly angry at my parents for bringing me to England. I believe that we should have just gone back to Dubai, and I was looking at it from rose-tinted spectacles, thinking if we go back, all my teenage angst would disappear, which of course, I'm sure wouldn't have been the case at all. But the angrier I got in England, I found myself becoming more drawn to angry music. I was listening to angry Beatles songs. I was listening to angry Eagles songs. Maxwell Silver Hammer by the Beatles. If you listen to it, it's quite a Maxwell, bouncy kind of song. It's about a guy who stalks women and kills them. It's not a happy song. But I found myself naturally gravitating a lot more towards angrier, more aggressive music. And I remember, again, me and my brother were in Sussex. There's a town called Horsham. That was our nearest big town. And we were in Horsham and we went to a music store. We were just, again, I think we're trying to find DVDs, but CDs were there as well. And I was going up and down the music aisle, just, again, not really paying attention to the music albums, just looking going, oh yeah, it's great. Oh yeah, I've heard of this band. Blah, 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 blah. Wasn't even consciously paying attention. And I remember finding a CD a CD case which was turned around. It had its back to me, and I was just like, no, that's the wrong way round. These people aren't doing their job. I should put the CD, turn it around, and put it the right way. Picked up the CD, random CD, turned it so the front was facing, and guess what it was? Countdown to Extinction by Megadeth. And my mind did a complete repression back to when I was 4 years old. It almost like a film. It went right back to that moment when we were in Dubai and we walked into this Virgin Megastore in the dark corner and found Countdown to Extinction for the first time. So, and I, fast forward to when I picked the CD and I looked and thought, I've never heard Megadeth. I've never heard any song by Megadeth. But because of this repressed childhood traumatic memory I had, I am buying this CD. And I went to go and buy it, and the guy actually who was at the counter, really long hair, who was obviously a metalhead himself. And I went up and was like, yeah, I'd like to buy this CD, please. And he just looked at me and he was like, how old are you? I was like, yeah, I'm 16. And he was like, yeah, okay, you're a little short for a 16-year-old. I don't buy that. Sorry, Megadeth are quite extreme. I'm not going to let you buy the CD. And I was like, oh, fuck you. He's like, I want to buy this CD. And he was like, no. I stormed out of there, found my dad, and I was like, Dad, there's a CD in there I really want to buy. It's called Countdown to Extinction by Megadeth. Can you go and get it? So my dad went in and bought it. And that ruined the rest of my childhood. That was it. As soon as I heard Skin of My Teeth drum intro, that was it. Sorry, I've been neglecting the chat, actually. Let me go. Good day, mate. Tom Jones is back. Hey! Megadeth Rules Symphony of Destruction. Mm-hmm. Yes, it is a tune. It is a tune, can't argue. I grew up with a guy who loved Black Sabbath. Everything I teach him how to play guitar. Oh, I've been listening to a lot of Sabbath recently, but I've been listening to a lot of like Tony Martin kind of stuff. I've listened to a lot of Cross Purposes is the album with the song Eyewitness and Back to Eden. I've been listening to a lot of that when I cook. I was listening to Rusty Angels as well, actually, from Forbidden. I know that's quite an underscore album, but it's got quite a cult following. I teach him guitar. Good for you, my friend. Good for you. I never learned how to play guitar, which then kind of comes into the actual focus of this live stream, because I just want to see if the cats want to go out. Do you guys want to go out? Oh, you're grooming each other. Usually if they want to go out, they will start meowing, so I think they're okay for the time being. Yeah. So yeah, that was like my first exposure to rock and metal. The next album I got, I loved Countdown to Extinction so much. The next album I got was Rust in Peace by Megadeth. But it wasn't just Megadeth. I mean, it seemed like that opened up the door to me. That was like, this is perfect. The tunneling, all this teenage angst and aggression I have. Let's now expand. And the band I got most into at that period was Iron Maiden. Maiden are my all-time favorite band. They're like the mothership of my music. And I will go out and listen to other bands, metal, even bands these days which are not metal, just other genres. But I will always end up going back to Maiden. But other stuff as well. I mean, they're okay. First song I learned to play was Deep Purple Smoke on the Water. Second song was One Metallica. I'm 51. Rocking from a young age. No, they're both good songs. Smoke on the Water actually paved the way for a lot of like metal bands kind of base their approach on. Deep Purple are very influential. I feel they are quite overlooked when people think about influential bands. But yeah, they are good. And Metallica, it took me a long time to kind of get into Metallica because, as I said, initially getting into Megadeth and obviously then growing up with that whole Megadeth versus Metallica kind of thing. I did stay away from Megadeth, from Metallica, sorry, for quite a long time. Eventually, I got to an age where I was just like, you know what? What does it matter? If you like it, you like it. Why do you have to kind of be in stupid camps? So, you know, the first Metallica album I got actually was Saint Anger. I don't think that was the best place to start, but I then developed from there. So another band I got into was Slayer. And I've actually been going on a real big Slayer binge recently. A lot of time when I have been like driving to work. Divine Intervention, the album Divine Intervention has lived in my car for the last 10 years. And whenever I've kind of like had a bit of a rough day at work, Divine Intervention usually goes on, along with American Head Charge sometimes. Metallica was good, but Megadeth Dave's voice rocks. I do like his voice. A lot of people don't like Mustaine's voice, but I like it. It's got this snarly aggression to it. And I feel that actually fits Megadeth's music almost perfectly. Yeah, I like his voice, to be honest. I feel there's some vocalists out there who their voices are rated, and yet I think are awful. Royal Dane from Nevermore, I never liked his voice. I mean, that's nothing against the guy. I'm sure I believe he's dead. Bless him. But I'm sure he was a nice guy, and Nevermore as a band, I did like. They weren't one of my favorites, but I did like them. When I just heard his voice, there was something about it. I was like, I just can't get with his voice, you know. I've heard people say Andy Deris from Halloween. They don't like his voice. I think he's got a perfect voice, to be honest. It's almost akin to like a Bruce Dickinson kind of voice with a slight bit more of a twinge to it. So anyway, at this stage, for being this teenager, I will get around to finishing this story, but it's so cool. It's so cool. See, this is the thing. Music brings people together. And this is probably one of the most interactive live streams I think I've done on my channel. Bearing in mind, this is a martial arts channel. We're talking about rock and metal music, and we've got people, we've got Tom Jones, we've got Flint Lockwood, who's got a picture of a penguin. We've got Metallica, we've got Deep Purple, you know, Black Sabbath. This, I feel, is what music should be about. And especially like rock and metal. It's like we're obviously complete strangers on this live chat. We don't know each other. And yet we all have this common interest. And it's that common interest which binds us together. And we're like, oh, you know, I feel as though psychologically I can relate to you guys, and hopefully vice versa, because we have this common ground. And that is what I feel music should be. It should be a bringing of people together. And even in a Slayer gig, it's not all about, you know, beating people up, which it was never about anyway. That's, you know, I feel a very ugly stereotype of the metal community. Love Judas Priest, best of British, mate. Be proud, mate. You got another thing coming. I listened to Demolition. I listened to their Demolition album and Jugulator. I listened to Jugulator for the first time the other week. Oh, it's got some bangers on that. Yeah. And I like Rob Halford as well. And as well, Rob Halford being gay. People, again, outsiders will look and think, well, how can you be a metaler and be gay? Who says you can't be? You know, what does it matter? Your sexuality has nothing to do with your musical interests. And I feel that when a lot of people realize Rob Halford is gay and he's got a husband, they're quite shocked. They're like, oh my God. They're like, really? Because you assume that if you're gay, you're generally left-wing leaning, you're generally considered to be a bit more accepting and a bit more open-minded, the theory goes. But people don't expect that in like a rock kind of band or a rock outlet. So I feel that Judas Priest very much break that stereotype when it comes to that. So anyway, as we're saying, back to the story. So at this time, teenager, I'd had my indoctrination with Megadeth. I'd become a devotee of Iron Maiden, and I had loads of Iron Maiden t-shirts, and pretty much every single Christmas I said to my parents, can you buy me an Iron Maiden album? I want to listen to Seventh Son. I want to listen to Fear of the Dark. I want to listen to Killers. I want to listen to The Number of the Beast. My poor parents were like, they came to do the Christmas list, and they're like, yeah, okay, so what does mum want for Christmas? What does dad want? Oh, what does brother want? Sam, what? Oh, yeah, let me guess. Iron Maiden CD. Like Slayer, like, cut my teeth on Slayer with God Hates Us All. And so on and so forth. I had all these metal bands on my collection, but I'd wake up in the morning, get ready for school. I'd put on Judas Priest. I'd go to school, have my what was then like the Discmans. We didn't have MP3 players or phones. But the Discman, I would have something like Rammstein playing. At school, I wouldn't listen to the teacher. I'd just be there doodling on my book, headphones in, listening to Exodus. Coming home on the bus, I'd be listening to Testament. Got home doing my homework, I'd be listening to Black Sabbath. Went off, did Taekwondo for the evening. Came back from Taekwondo as I was getting ready for bed. I'd be listening to, I don't know, Venom or something like that. Fear of the Dark, similar to In My Hour of Darkness. Fear of the Dark is a good album. Again, a lot of people don't seem to like Fear of the Dark, or they see it as very esoteric. It's a very eclectic kind of album. I like it, probably because it is dark. And I'd say it's the most aggressive Maiden album we've got. Oh, they're playing with each other under the door. This is the most active the cats have been. I said they always seem to kind of know when I'm doing something important, whether I'm doing my therapy sessions online or work, whatever. They always seem to know what's going on. So I had all these music CDs, all this different types of metal. My brother went off into whereas I kind of stayed the heavy metal, the speed metal, the thrash metal, my brother very much went into the industrial metal. He became very big on Nine Inch Nails, Genie Torturers, Dope, got a little bit into that kind of stuff, Boldface Industry, stuff like this, KMFDM. But then my brother took it even further. He got very much into his gore and grind bands, gore metal bands. And he'd come up to me and be like, hey, Sam, fuck that Megadeth trash, fuck Slayer, listen to this. And he'd give me a CD and I'd look at it and I couldn't even make out what the band was called. It was just scribbled. But the album cover itself would be even more repulsive. It would be like, I don't know, what was one he showed me? I think it was Butchered at Birth by Cannibal Corpse. And the album cover, it was like this corpse on a table, and there were these two goblin creatures stabbing knives into it or something. And again, even at that stage, I was looking at thinking who comes up with these images? They must have real psychiatric conditions. And he was like, don't worry about that, listen to it. And he put on Cannibal Corpse for the first time, and it was literally just and all this kind of stuff. And it was I was perplexed. I was like, is this even singing? Is he even singing? What's he even saying? I can't make it out. It's just and then my brother was getting into Napalm Death, which admittedly Napalm Death are one of my favorite bands. It took many years for me to come around to Napalm Death. But this kind of stuff, again, I feel was subconsciously, it was affecting me in a positive way. And I wasn't taking any of this stuff seriously. I mean, my brother was getting into bands like Dying Fetus and Piss Drinkers and other horrible. Gorgasm was another one. Gore Guts, Garroted, Gore This, Gore That. Cock and Ball Torture was another one. And it's all these really, really just repulsive gore bands. But at that time, listening to all this stuff, and I remember just looking and thinking, you know what? Maybe I should make a band of my own. I could combine all these musical influences. I could combine the melody of Iron Maiden with the down-tuned guitars of Black Sabbath, and I could combine that with the aggression of Napalm Death and the political slogans of Rage Against the Machine, with the depression of Soundgarden and Tool and Alice in Chains, and all this kind of stuff. I've stopped at Sepultura and Nail Bomb the best. I found I like music with a beat, rhythm, funk, even Rob Zombie rules. Yeah. Sepultura, yeah, I was listening to them the other day as well. Nail Bomb, I got the album. What was it? Point Blank was their album, and every single song has like the word shit in it or something like that, like world of shit and hate is reality and all this kind of stuff. I quite like Nail Bomb. It's a shame they kind of split up and what have you. And other bands like Soulfly and Cavalera Conspiracy came out of that as well. Rob Zombie and White Zombie, yep. I was listening to them the other day, strangely enough. Blood, Milk and Sky. That is an atmospheric tune. Blood, Milk and Sky is, my God, that's something you play late at night after you've had a few beers and you just think about all the bad stuff happening in the world and you hear Blood, Milk and Sky playing and you're just like, yeah. Wow, you found Nail Bomb, amazing. I don't even remember how I found it. I think it was like this charity shop and it was just sitting there. That's how in the early days I found most of my metal stuff, was literally going to these like weird independent shops and finding just random CDs. I'll pick them up, look at the titles on the back and think, yep, this sounds metal, this sounds rock. I think I can groove to this. And I'd just put it on. Yeah, stuff like that. Music gives you strength. It certainly does. It certainly does. It's true. I mean, when I did my psychology degree, there was a whole module about how music is related to psychology and how different, I suppose you're getting like social psychology here, how certain different genres resonate with certain demographics. Metal, generally speaking, resonates more with white males. And that's why generally you get in like metal bands, there are a few exceptions, like Sepultura being an exception. The singer for Sepultura is Derek Green, who's a black guy. But generally speaking, it's going to be white guys, mostly. Then you get stuff like, as well, most people, the study, or different studies, meta-analysis and meta-studies showed that most people who get into rock and metal generally are loners. Not said in a bad way, but people are just like, they're quite introverted, they want to keep themselves to themselves. Or they have psychiatric conditions. I don't necessarily agree with that one myself, but that's just what these studies have shown. Rap. Now, rap demographic generally appeals to Afro-Caribbean types or black communities. And yeah, again, you get white rappers, like Eminem. But generally speaking, you're going to get rappers or rap bands, rap groups, mostly black. D12, Wu-Tang Clan, House of Pain, stuff like this. But then you get the white rappers like Skee-Lo, as we said, Eminem. But classical music as well. Most people who, demographics found, who are into classical music are quite high on what's called the F scale, which basically is like fascist tendencies. And you can see evidence of that by looking at a lot of the time the Nazis, their preferred music choice was classical music, Wagner, stuff like this. And there was a reason why in the novel Clockwork Orange, Alex, the main antagonist, and all his thugs listened to classical music because they were, well-to-do thugs from well-to-do kind of families. And instead of listening out to like rock music or stuff like that, they used to beat people up listening to classical music. The whole module of that, the whole music and psychology, was very, very fascinating. What are you doing? Oh my goodness. Oh. Okay. Well, keep playing on that thing. What music do you like? Meowsies. I was playing NWA and Sepultura in 96 and 2000. What amps and subs? Love David Bowie. Classical music for me. Well, Marilyn Manson was inspired by David Bowie very much. Yeah, and you can hear like a lot of rock does get influence as well from the basis of classical music. And you can see why, because some classical music is very aggressive. You listen to stuff like, what was it, Flight of the Valkyries? Again, by Wagner. Very sort of powerful kind of music. Beethoven's symphonies are very powerful. Winter from the Four Seasons by Antonio Vivaldi has a very, very, I find, very powerful musical direction, which I can see why a lot of rock bands would have actually taken a basis of their influence from that. Just the aggression of it, really. A lot of classical music, a lot of people think, oh, it's peaceful, it's very chill. It's kind of not, to be honest. And you look at a lot of like classical artists, they had a lot of psychiatric conditions themselves. Mozart was a fetish guy. I mean, he was, I believe, obsessed with like feet. He had a foot fetish. And people look at Mozart and they're like, oh, this is lovely. And you're like, okay, well, if Mozart was around today, just chuck him into like a London BDSM club and it'll be his element. Ziggy Stardust of the late 60s was amazing. Oh, yes. Oh, 60s. Jefferson Airplane. Or was that 70s? Jefferson Airplane, that was 60s, I believe, wasn't it? I could be wrong. So this is great. But going back to the situation then, or the story about how I made this band of mine. So at the time, me and my brother, we were like listening to all this weird and wonderful music, ranging from like Black Sabbath to Cattle Decapitation and all these horrible gore grind bands. And yeah, I was like, you know what? I feel as though I can make a band. Do I play an instrument? No. Have I ever been able to play an instrument? No. Can I sing? No. But I still wanted to make a band just because I loved all these music we were listening to at the time. I felt it was a good outlet, and I was like, I don't even care if I can't play an instrument. I'm going to make a band, maybe get some friends who can play instruments, but none of my friends at the time could play instruments. I was like, that doesn't matter. We'll learn. Many great guitarists like Dave Mustaine were self-taught. So I was like, yeah, we can learn. So I remember I suggested this to two of my friends at the time, a guy called Joe, who was a complete introvert, wouldn't say boo to a goose, lovely guy, but he just would not, he wouldn't go outside if he didn't have to. And he looked like Garth from Wayne's World. And the other guy was called Andy. Now, Andy was the polar opposite to Joe. Andy was very extroverted. Andy, I believe, may have had a few psychiatric issues himself, but he was a cool guy. His heart was in the right place. Much love from New Zealand, mate. 8 Foot Sativa is one of our best. I'm a big Bon Scott AC/DC fan. Let there be rock. Yeah, can't argue with that. I'm getting distracted again. I could go on a story about, yeah, I was listening to AC/DC the other day as well. No, I saw the film Maximum Overdrive, Stephen King one, and they had AC/DC as the soundtrack to that. So it was like, you saw the truck coming over like with a big face on it, coming over the hill, and you had Highway to Hell playing, and it was just like, oh, you can't get any more classic than this. And even if you've seen that film Wolf Creek 2, when Mick, the psycho, is in his truck and he's chasing that British kid down the road, and Mick's like, "Wow, Struth, let's put on some tunes, mate." And he puts something on. You expect it to be something like Creator or Sodom or something like that, and no, it's that a wimba wop, a wimba wop, a wimba wop, a wimba wop, and he goes, "Oh, nice." And yeah, Wolf Creek. If you haven't seen Wolf Creek, especially Wolf Creek 2, I just found Wolf Creek 2 funny. Just Mick, the antagonist, just his random rants. It's just a good thing that people like that don't exist in reality. I hope not. So yeah, anyway, me and my two friends, Joe and Andy, and we were like, right, we're gonna make a band. We had the leather jackets, we had like the ripped denim. So we sat down and we went through what instruments we had. The only instruments we did have were this bongo drum, which I'd taken without permission from my school, from the music department. We had an electric guitar, which I inherited from Dubai, and we had my dad's acoustic guitar. So we had that. We didn't have any microphones or anything, but we had a recorder, this old 1990s recorder where you could like speak into it, and it had a button where you could like warp your voice, so you could say things and it would like distort your voice, so you'll be like, ooh, ooh. And we thought, yeah, we're set to go. But we needed cymbals for the drum, so I ended up getting my pencil case, which was like a tin can, and put that next to the bongo. And we didn't have drumsticks, so we used chopsticks. So anyway, with this arsenal of bongo, pencil case, chopsticks, acoustic guitar, which was my dad's, and electric guitar, and a recorder, we got to work. We just went into the lounge and we ended up just saying, right, let's just strum. And we literally just went like, and Joe was like, boom, 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 on the bongo with the chopsticks. And he went to make the cymbals with the tin can. And we recorded it on this recorder thing. We were recording our debut album. And when we recorded it, we were like, we hadn't even had names for the songs. We did about 12 songs for it, and we all just improvised as we were doing it. We didn't have any names for these songs beforehand. We didn't even have a name of a band at the time. We only came up with this at the end. We were like, oh. So we recorded this album, recorded it onto tape, because we didn't have the technology to record it onto a CD or an MP3 or anything. So we had this tape. And Joe, being the other pessimist, was like, so what we gonna call ourselves then, dudes? And I think we're coming up with like really stupid names like the Big Red Horn Devils or something, or something along the lines of like We Kill You and stuff like this, and you know, Drink My Vomit, and which takes its influence from like the gore kind of stuff and the grind metal. And I remember actually then thinking, well, the other day I played a game called Prince of Persia, and there was a level in there where you saw this like Buddhist temple. So the word Buddha came to my mind. And when I saw this Buddhist temple, there's a statue of a Buddha, or what looked like a Buddha, and it was sleeping. So it must have been having a dream. So this is how my mind works. And I was like, right, let's take one word, add it with another word. What do we get? Buddha's Dream. And I was like, that's a great name for a gore metal band. We'll use Buddha's Dream. And the other two, Andy and Joe, are just like, so that was our first album. And when it came to like writing the names of the songs, it was literally just a case of, let's look out the window, we'll see something, we'll mention what that thing is we've seen, compare it to what you've seen and you've mentioned, and we'll just put them together. And we ended up having these really weird names for songs like Epileptic Angels, or The Whale Looks Sick, or stuff like this, like My Trousers Are Wet. And one of them was called something like Sabrina's Smelly Fish. And at the time, that wasn't one of my songs, it was somebody else made it. And I didn't even understand what that meant until many, many years later on. I was like, pennies dropped. Jailbreak and Highway to Hell rocks. Wolf Creek, crazy Aussie outback. I lived in Western Australia, beautiful outback sunsets. Slightly off topic, one of my goals is to actually move to Perth as a career goal. So yeah, I've been doing a lot of research about Western Australia. My cousin lives there. He says it's the best thing he's done ever, moving to Australia. And I said, would you ever come back to England? He's just like, no. I like all types of music. Young One Thing song, awesome. Björk. We did have a live stream once where we had like Björk playing in the background, and somebody who'd never even commented on the live stream before actually came along, and they were like, "This is scaring me," so I had to turn it off. I mean, Björk's a scary lady. Yeah, but anyway, that was the birth of Buddha's Dream, and we then, like, over the time of the course of like the next year, true to metal form, band members came and went. Joe, the pessimistic drummer, was the first one to go because I think he just generally didn't like doing anything. He was just like, oh, I'd rather be at home just playing my Final Fantasy VIII or whatever it was he was into at the time, Pokemon Stadium. So he was the first to go, and we brought in this kid called James, yeah, and he was a huge Slipknot fan. So he came to the rehearsals wearing Slipknot hoodie and stuff, and he was like, yeah, I'm going to contribute loads of songs. And you know, he had a very Slipknot kind of vibe to him and stuff. And I think he did play the drums, but he was just like taking a lot of like Slipknot songs and trying to play the drums to like Wait and Bleed or stuff like this, or Left Behind and all these kind of songs. And at the time, I didn't like nu metal. Nu metal was the only metal genre I did not like. But I had no reason to dislike it. I just did not like it, because I feel it was the whole image of nu metal was very sort of like weird new metal. And whenever I did listen to them, it was kind of like, well, I didn't like the rapping. I didn't like the Limp Bizkit kind of baseball cap, kind of like, ladies and gentlemen, yo, $3 bill, yo, or whatever the hell he says. I didn't like listening to Freak on a Leash by Korn and hearing John Davis do the what I call the Rolf Harris, like like that. It was just like, what the fuck is this stuff? So I was anything to do with new metal at the time. I was just like, no, we're not doing it. And James was really distraught. He was like, oh, but I was listening to Slipknot the other day, and I was listening to Korn. I was listening to I don't know, Cold Chamber, and I was getting like all these ideas, and I want to bring them to our band. I want to bring them to Buddha's Dream, and I was just like, we're not doing it. It's like, no, we're not bringing new metal into Buddha's Dream. But we for the space of a year, we went through numerous lineup changes. Sometimes we actually brought in people who could play music instruments. Sometimes we didn't, and a lot of people who I just went up to and said, look, we've lost our guitarist. Would you like to join a band? Do you want to join my band, Buddha's Dream? And people were like, yeah, but I don't play an instrument. And I'd say, you don't need to. Here you go. Just plug in the amp, turn it up to 11, 11.5 if you're adventurous, and just strum, and you're in. And some people liked it. And we ended up like recording all these albums, which are literally just like recording into this machine and putting them onto tapes and giving the songs weird and elaborate names. And then we decided to go public, which basically meant that we took all of our tapes, or we made copies of all these albums we'd done, and we would go to places like Virgin Megastore or MVC, which is now shut down, HMV, and we would subtly put these tapes in between like big name bands like Michael Jackson or The Cause, stuff like this. We just subtly put them in there, and we'd be quite psychological. We'd be like, okay, so who's selling these days? What bands are popular? And I think at the time it was stuff like Red Hot Chili Peppers were quite big. So we go to the Red Hot Chili Peppers albums in these stores, and we like put our Buddha's Dream tapes like behind the front CD in the rack. So anybody goes then like, yeah, I want to listen to Red Hot Chili Peppers. I want to buy their album. They go and pick up the album. There'll be a Buddha's Dream tape behind it. And we were then hoping people would be like, oh, Buddha's Dream. Well, that looks interesting. I'll take that home. Much like what happened with me and Megadeth when I was a kid. So we're trying to spread our influence that way. Björk old school. Yep, I have fine taste. You certainly do. Yeah. Venus as a Boy is a cool track. Human Behavior, I think, is one of my favorite tracks of Björk. And what's the one where she's driving a truck and she goes to the dentist? In the music video, she's driving a truck. She goes to the dentist, and the dentist is this like gorilla creature who then puts like a diamond in her mouth or takes a diamond out, and she blows this museum up. That was a video I saw as a kid in Dubai, and I found that very strange. But I do like Björk. A lot of people, I feel these days, they kind of say like, oh, artists like Sia are different. Artists like Sam Smith is different. And actually, I hate myself for saying that, because I almost did a thesis about Sam Smith and the psychology of Sam Smith. Yeah. But I say no, go to Björk. Listen to Björk. Look at Björk's image. That is weird, but in a good way. It's a good weird. Army of Me, I think, yeah. Progressive. Army of Me, yes, it is. Yeah. And the song I Miss You as well. I like the music video to that, because I find that have you ever seen that skit called Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared? Because the video to I Miss You reminds me very much of Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared. Probably for all the wrong reasons. Europe is progressive. Are we referring to Sam Smith here? Just a side note, because this relates to metal as well. I think it was last year or the year before, Sam Smith went to the music awards, like the Brit Music Awards, and he'd released a song. Oh, what was the name? It was called like I'm Not Here to Make Friends, I think it could have been. And part of the music video, he's prancing around wearing like women's lingerie, and there's a scene where it's suggestive that he's drinking wee, or somebody's weeing into his face. No, I'm thinking of a completely different video. No. Forget what I just said. Sam Smith did a video called Unholy. And the whole music video, he was like dressed up as a devil with these devil horns on his hat. And he'd be like singing a song about being unholy, like going, mummy and daddy are going down to the dark club tonight or something like that. And the feedback from social media was all kind of like, oh, Sam Smith, he's a devil worshipper, he's satanic. Oh, look at him, he's dressed up as like a devil. Oh, this is horrible. Oh, protect the children. And I remember looking at this and thinking, like, seriously, Sam Smith, satanic. And I then picked up a CD. I actually filmed a short for this and put it on my channel. It's called like Sam Smith versus Slayer, because I then picked up a CD and it was the album God Hates Us All by Slayer. And I remember doing this like stupid skit for myself. I was like, oh, some people say Sam Smith's a Satan worshipper. Nah, listen to this instead. God hates us all. Let's put this in for some banging tunes. And the whole thing around, I find actually what makes the whole album God Hates Us All by Slayer genuinely controversial is the fact it was released on September the 11th, 2001, which, as we all probably remember, was the tragic day where the Twin Towers were attacked. So I feel actually, obviously, I mean, Slayer didn't know this was going to be the case. They just happened to release this date on that horrible, tragic day with no ulterior pun or motive. But it was just, I'm going to say this, but I'm not saying with any sympathy to what happened, and with the greatest of respect to the victims who lost their lives, but it was so fitting. Just like the Twin Towers collapsed in the name of a god, and then one of the most aggressive thrash metal bands around released an album called God Hates Us All. It's just kind of like the coincidence is, well, not the coincidence, but it's just such an uncanny, you know, dark, very dark correlation, I'd say there. Slipknot, maggots for life. Well, that being said, even though that band member who I had was very big on Slipknot and tried to get me into Slipknot, and I was very much pushing it back against that, over time, I began to open up gradually to Slipknot. And in 2006, I went to India to do a teaching contract out there, and I was teaching these kids in India. But these kids, they could speak perfect English. So I thought, I'm not going to go to India and teach you how to do nouns and pronouns and commas and apostrophes. It's like, that's going to be an insult to you. What I'll teach you instead is martial arts in spare time. And I'll also teach you music. And one of the bands I actually taught them about was Slipknot. And we went into like the computer rooms and I said, right, you guys have got to Google images of Slipknot and tell me the band members and names. And they were coming up with all these images of Slipknot and they were getting scared, these kids. They were like, they called me Mr. Samso. Mr. Samso, is this Slipknot? And they point to the picture and I'd come up and have a look and there'll be like the guy with like the long nose and there'll be like a video of him like doing that with his nose. And I'd be like, yeah, that's Slipknot. And then before I left, I was saying to him, right, part of your homework, you've got to learn a Slipknot song because I'm going to be testing you. You've got to come out to the front of the class on the last lesson of term and sing the whole Slipknot song. And you've got these like little kids and they were learning stuff like Wait and Bleed and they were learning Tattered and Torn and all this kind of stuff and Liberate. all these horrible songs. And the other teachers loved it. They wanted to learn about Slipknot as well. They kept coming to me and was like saying, oh, you know, we'd like to see Slipknot. I was like, I don't think they're coming to India anytime soon. And but they're like, oh, but you know, it's a shame, but maybe we can go to like England or America or wherever and see Slipknot. And I was like, okay, I mean, that's an ambitious plan, but see what you can find. Slipknot. I'm from Iowa. Slipknot's from Des Moines. Hey, most of my subscribers or viewers for this channel actually are from the States, all over. One of my regulars is from Illinois. Connecticut is another place. California is another one. I believe somebody said they're from Michigan as well. So it seems to be from just all over the States. I do enjoy liaising and actually interacting with my American subscribers because, you know, you guys are just generally cool. So respect from across the pond. It's not my cup of tea. it's a very an acquired taste. I'd say Slipknot. Like that, originally I wasn't a fan of Slipknot. I wasn't drawn to the new metal scene. The first new metal band I properly got into was Dope. And that's when I said to myself, look, I was getting older in life, and I was just like, look, does style really matter to you? If you listen to a piece of music and you like it, why don't you just say you like it, regardless of what style it is? Why do you have to be confined by these binary, I will only listen to thrash metal, I will only listen to power metal, I don't want to listen to symphonic black metal, I don't want to listen to porno grind metal, it always sounds like this. If you like it, just listen to it. And I gave Dope a try. I quite like Dope. And then that kind of branched out into other stuff. And I then began listening to other new metal bands a little bit, like Cold Chamber. I wouldn't say I'm a Cold Chamber fan by any stretch, but I can at least appreciate some of their songs. And likewise of other new metal bands these days. But it took me a long time to get into new metal, coming from originally like a heavy metal, speed metal, thrash metal background. I saw Slipknot in 1999, was nuts, almost got trampled. My brother told me about a story. He went to see Testament. Testament came to London in England, and my brother's like, he almost got trampled to death. And Testament, they're thrash metal, but they're not considered, like, you wouldn't expect to go to a Testament gig and get stampeded on. And my brother was like, it was horrible. And he came back, his t-shirt was all ripped and stuff as well. I worked once at a care home for people with learning difficulties, and there was one of the clients I supported who needed his toenails cut, and we have to call in chiropodists. We can't do it ourselves. We have to call in somebody external to come and actually do toenails. And this chiropodist came in, and he was a Canadian guy. And anyway, he came in, he saw my client, and he did his toenails, and I paid him. He was about to head off. And I was wearing a 9 Inch Nails t-shirt. Didn't think anything of it. And just before this chiropodist left, he turned to me and he was like, oh yeah, by the way, it's like, good band. I saw them in Toronto, or something like back in 1994 when they were on the Fragile tour or something. No, not Fragile, that was much later on, but Downward Spiral tour. And I said to him, oh, how was it? I've always wanted to go to a 9 Inch Nails gig. And he was like, yeah, I'm surprised I made it out of there alive. And it's just like, okay, that says it all. Full Force was brutal as fuck. Rammstein is universal. Do us. There's a lot of interesting Rammstein. Rammstein were the first Neue Deutsche Harte band I got into. I loved their debut album, Herzeleid, and I loved Sehnsucht. When it got to Mutter, that's when I began to lose a little bit of interest. But I got into other Neue Deutsche Harte bands. Oomph, if you've heard of Oomph, if you like Rammstein, you'll probably like Oomph. There's another one called Megahertz, and they are one of my all-time favorite bands. They're from Munich. Very similar to Rammstein, very similar to Oomph, but they've got more of like a dark kind of fairy tale theme to a lot of their songs. One of the albums they did was called Kopfschuss, which literally in German translates as headshot or shot in the head. I recommend starting there, and I think if you like Rammstein, you'd like Megahertz. Tom Jones, I think this last tour Rammstein was one of the best shows, if not best, I've ever seen. Flamethrower, backpack. Yeah, Rammstein do a lot of like pyrotechnics. Till, the lead singer, I remember like in the early days, he used to be in this flameproof suit and he used to get flamethrowed, but I think he actually got burnt on one occasion. So I don't think he does it as much from what I've heard. It's quite a shame actually what's happened to Till recently, because I know there were he was accused of indecent assault, I believe, but I believe he actually got cleared because the girls who accused him weren't able to provide any evidence, or not substantial enough evidence. So the prosecution was like, well, we can't prosecute him, but there's no evidence to say that Till Lindemann actually did this. So I believe they actually they dropped it. He's actually, again, he's not on stage. He looks like this imposing figure, but actually, from what I've heard, he's a very, very quiet individual. He's quite introverted, and he says he actually, away from Rammstein, he likes to kind of just have his own space. Flame. I tried learning with Du Hast Riff yesterday. Was surprised it's more complex than I thought. If I could actually play an instrument, I'd probably actually give that a go. To be honest, favorite Rammstein song. That's one of my favorite songs in America. Oh, I was actually about to ask actually, what's everybody's favorite Rammstein song or songs? You know, you can always have more than one song as a favorite. For me, I do like Wollt ihr das Bett in Flammen sehen. I think that's an awesome track. Das alte Lied, I think it's another good one. From Sehnsucht, Engel. I mean, I appreciate that's very much overplayed a lot of the time, but I think that's got a good track to it. Spiel mit mir, I suppose. Going into the later stuff, I mean, the later albums of Rammstein, I'm really not familiar with at all. Mutter, I'd probably say my favorite song from Mutter would be Zwitter, maybe. Rammstein is so clean live. Mutter, pretty good. What came after Mutter? Riser Riser, I think it was. Hi, Doug. My dogs always get up in my face when I'm on the phone. Your cats are doing the kitty version of the Goggy. Yes, I spelled that wrong because I love Goggies. They're just putting you as a human. Lol. The cats just, they know when I'm trying to do important stuff. And the work I do as a bereavement counselor as well, I do that with my camera on the laptop. And I try to make sure the cats are all out because obviously I'm liaising with clients who are going through grief and bereavement, and it can be very emotionally raw. And the last thing I want to do is talk to me about something really emotionally hard hitting, and a cat just jumps in front of the camera. But one occasion, actually, I had a client, and I thought all the cats were out. And as you can see, all these boxes, it's because I'm trying to move. My house isn't usually like this. This used to be a study. It was like a library, basically. But one of the cats hid in the boxes, and I was just working with my client, and then out of nowhere, the cat, I've forgotten which one it was, jumped out of the box right in front of the camera. And this poor client, who was actually almost on the point of tears, talking to me about her bereavement, saw the cat and she just burst into laughter. And I was like, I'm so glad that's happened, because it's kind of, you could easily have swung the other way and she'd be like, oh, but yeah, they know when I'm trying to do important stuff. The guitar sounds so fucking good. Kiddom's are dope as fuck too, in their own way. I just vibe with cookies more. Yes, I still know I'm spelling it wrong. That's fine, that's fine. We're not grammar police here, and you know, some people have typed stuff in here which is like far, far worse. There was somebody who was actually commenting on one of my videos I did about Choi Kwang Do, which Choi Kwang Do is essentially like a fake martial art. It's a dojo of a martial art. And me being me, I like kind of poking that Choi Kwang Do bear, and I'll do these videos about Choi Kwang Do, and I'll give them names like Choi Kwang Do will lick Taekwondo's boot, knowing full well it's going to get a response, and knowing full well I'm going to get a lot of flack. And quite often these Choi people will comment on my video, and they'll be like trying to insult me. They're calling me all the 4 or 5 letter words you can think of, but they're always in poor English and poor grammar. It would just literally be like, you, Sam, are a fucking piece of fucking shit, and you fuck shit, you like eating shit, go shit in your shitting shit, fuck mouth, fuck shit, with no punctuation. And I look at this and be like, you're either high when you've sent this message to me, you're drunk, you're extremely angry to the point where your cognitive abilities have just shut off, or you just don't know how to make grammatical sentences. And sometimes one occasion I actually pointed this out to one of these Choi guys, and then he came back with something just saying like, fuck, and it's just like, okay. Oh, fly. Cats make you happy. Cats make everyone happy. Life without a cat is just, it's not life. Perfectly sober. One of the lessons I learned in life is, if you want somebody to be honest with you, get them angry or get them drunk, and Freudian slips will come through. And then when people make Freudian slips, you know what they really are feeling on the inside. One of the many dark life lessons I've learned from the hard way, but I'm sharing that with you guys free of charge. The only thing you need to pay for that, to get that advice, is literally just write in the comment section, which you're all doing, which is great. You know, this has been a very insightful experience, I feel, for me. It's like, it's been great. I mean, on a serious note, I feel it's been great, like, just liaising with people that people that you wouldn't otherwise know in life. I mean, at the end of the day, we've got people here from Iowa, we've got people from New Zealand, and you know, we probably never would have actually met or conversed at all in life. And yet it's cool because what's kind of like brought this all together is just a live stream about music. And as I said earlier, I feel that's what it should be. People just getting to kind of like know each other, even on a virtual basis, because they have mutual interests. In this case, music. Talking about Rammstein, you know, and again, this being a martial arts channel, it's like, this is why I do these kind of types of live streams, kind of get away from the martial arts, so it gives an opportunity to just talk about other things. Whereas if this live stream had been about, I don't know, the practical implications of certain techniques from jiu-jitsu, it wouldn't have been half as fun, I'm sure. This is awesome. I'll be subbing. No, thank you very much. I'll sub to you too as well, actually. Cheeky Kiwi, nice to meet you too, mate. No problems at all. Guys, on that note, I am actually going to be signing off. It's getting up to lunchtime here, actually, and I need to go and feed the cats as well. But no, seriously, thank you all so much for your contributions, and thank you for coming and joining. If it's your first time, you know, you're always more than welcome. Feel free as well, at any point, just kind of like comment on any of my videos or just say what you'd like to have a live stream about. Quite often I'll drop posts and I'll say, you know, here's a poll, here's what I've been thinking of, here's some ideas I've had. But by all means, feel free to just kind of like leave comments as well and say, you know what, would it be cool if maybe we did a live stream about, I don't know, and leave whatever topic you want to talk about. And, you know, I'll always try and see if I can make it work. It's a democracy and we all live in a free world. And I feel that I'd rather kind of like do videos or live streams of what people want to actually engage with, as opposed to me be a dictator and say, this is what we're going to do. And nobody else really wants to do that, which I don't feel is fair on anyone. Nice to meet everyone. God bless, dude. You too, Tom Jones. Guys, whatever you're up to in the world, enjoy the sunshine, stay safe, train hard, keep listening to all these awesome bands we've been talking about. They're all the best bands in the world. And hopefully, see you all next time. Peace out.